Hi, welcome to this channel where we talk about life after stroke, stroke recovery, and living with invisible disabilities. When we started this YouTube channel a few months ago, we were expecting to share the good, the bad, the ugly about our life after stroke, but I never thought that the ugly would come this soon, or I never thought that it would hit us the way it did. So this is going to be the most raw, unfiltered video. And I didn't think I'd be able to um, sit down and film this video so soon, but I think this will really help me process and start the healing process. So it's Monday afternoon today, just a few days ago on Friday, February something. I don't know what day it was. It was Friday. My husband had another medical emergency. I just want to say he's fine. We're at home. He's doing well and he's stable, back to his baseline pre-stroke normal self. But it traumatized me and it traumatized the kids. And I just want to share a little bit about what happened. So on Friday morning was a typical day. My oldest daughter, Jennifer, left the house at 6:30, followed by my son. He left at 8:30. I left at 9:30, and my youngest daughter was at home until 11:15 a.m. So she left at 11:15. My husband was home alone for about 45 minutes before all of this happened. He was feeling totally fine that morning. He was feeling fine, nothing unusual. He was doing laundry when my youngest daughter left, said goodbye. And then about 40 minutes after she left, it was right before noon, so lunchtime, he was sitting on the couch and he all of a sudden felt pain in his right arm and his right leg. Now, to give you some background information, a year and a half ago, September 2023, he suffered a massive ischemic stroke to the left side of his brain. So as a result, he's living with aphasia, a communication disorder, and right-sided weakness. He has very good mobility, but most of the deficits are cognitive deficits and living with invisible disabilities. So he was sitting on the couch. He suddenly felt pain on his right side of the body, which he had never felt before. And then he thought, maybe I should eat lunch because he hadn't eaten lunch yet. So he walked to the kitchen and he went to the sink to wash his hands. And as soon as the water hit his hands, he knew that something was definitely wrong. So he went and he sat down at the kitchen chair, and then he still felt very unwell. And he thought, I will go to the couch in the living room and lie down. So on his way to the couch, his cell phone was on right by the couch, and he picked it up and he called me. Now, I was at work at that time, and he doesn't usually call me unless it's really important. If it's something that's minor, he'll just text. But he called me, and at that specific time he called me, it was 12:01 p.m. I was standing in the middle of my office with my phone in my hand. That rarely happens that I have my phone in my hand. I usually leave it on my desk and it just stays there all day. But if I leave my desk, I don't carry my phone with me. So now I know, mental note, always carry my phone with me, even if I get up to go to the washroom. So I had my phone in my hand and I saw that he was calling, and it startled me because he doesn't usually call. So as soon I picked it up on the first ring and I said, honey, and his voice was, I knew from his voice and his breathing that he was not okay. But miraculously, he got out these words. He said, Esther, I feel weird, my right side. And we hung up the phone. I grabbed my purse. I ran to the car. And as I was driving out of the parking lot, I called him back to say, I'm on my way. give me more information. But when I called, he didn't answer the phone and it went straight to his voicemail. So I knew that this was a dire emergency situation. I called 911 as I was driving home. The distance between my office and my home is 3 kilometers. So it would take anywhere between 5 to 7 minutes to drive home. I was calling 911 and I told her, my husband is home alone. I will be home in 5 minutes. I'm on my way. And I think he's having another stroke. I need an ambulance at this address right now. So the operator stayed with me on the phone until I got home, asking a bunch of questions. And as soon as I went home, I went in through the kitchen door. All the lights were off, so it was very dark and very quiet. And I was scared. I was really scared. And I walked through the kitchen, quiet. No one was there. And I started calling him, honey, honey, I'm home. I'm home. And it was just quiet. And then I thought maybe he's upstairs. So as I got to the stairs, that's when I saw his body, like his image. I think this image I will never get out of my head. His body was slumped over the couch. His knees were on the floor and just his upper body was slumped over the couch, and his face was in our couch cushions. And in that split second that I saw him, not even exaggerating, I thought he had died. And I told the operator, I think he's dead. And she instructed me to go and check on him and to check his pulse. I didn't want to, but I had to. So he was there slumped over the couch, and it was dark. The lights were all off, and it was a really rainy, gloomy day. So it was a lot darker than it should have been at that time. And I was trying to feel his pulse. And because his face was in the cushions, he wears glasses, his glasses were pushed up to his forehead like this, and his face was in the cushions. And I was trying to find his pulse, but I couldn't find it. And his pulse was so weak. So he was unconscious. He had a very, very weak pulse, and I couldn't find it. So I started panicking, like, where is it? Where is it? And then all of a sudden I saw his body stir a little bit. And then I realized that I could hear him breathing. And I was like, I think he's alive. I can hear him breathing. And so the operator instructed me to count his breathing out loud so that she knows how he's breathing. And I kept asking, what's the ETA? When is the ambulance coming? Because at that time I couldn't hear anything. But I did go, and because we've been through this before, I knew, open the door. So I opened the front door all the way, and she instructed me, get him on the floor on his back. And I said, I can't do that. And she said, you must. And I said, no, I'm here alone. Like, I physically didn't think that I would have the physical strength to do that. And she just said to me, you have no choice. Do it now. Shoom! And I did. And I don't remember that. I think that part of my memory has been blocked out, how I got him onto the floor. And I know that was just pure adrenaline. It wasn't my muscles or my strength or anything like that. So as soon as I got him on the ground, I looked at his face, and his eyes were rolled back. And that's also another image that I can't get out of my memory right now, but I wish I can someday. She instructed me to count his breathing again by putting my hand on his chest, and then I heard the sirens. And the 2 paramedics came, and I just want to say, they were my angels. They were absolutely incredible. Sarah and Chris, They were the paramedics. And if this video ever makes its way to you, thank you. Sarah was so quick, so professional, very calm. She sat down, she started checking his vitals and doing her thing. Then Chris came in. During that time, I went and I got his medications, and I got the green sleeve. I don't have it with me, but it's the envelope that we have to post on our refrigerator that has his whole health information and the medications he's taking. So I grabbed that, and Chris said that this is great. I just need his care card. So I ran upstairs, got the wallet, and I was ready to go. And they got him on the stretcher and in the ambulance in super fast. And I said, okay, so which hospital are we going to? I will meet you there, thinking that I'm not allowed to ride in the ambulance because last time the 911 or the paramedics didn't allow me to go into the ambulance with him. So I just thought, this is the protocol in BC, something that I don't know about. And he looked at me and he said, no, I don't want you to drive. It's too dangerous for you to drive by yourself. You stick with me. Come in here. And so I got to ride in the ambulance with him. And I was able to say to my husband, I'm right here. We're in an ambulance. We're going to the hospital. You're going to be okay. I don't know if he was able to hear me because at that time he was very unresponsive. Anytime the paramedics asked him to do something, he did not respond at all. And actually, back up, before we left for the ambulance, while they were getting him on the stretcher, I called my oldest daughter, Jennifer. I said, where are you? She was actually on her way home from work. She was close by. And I said, I think Dad is having a second stroke. I need you to come home right now. And her response was just, okay. And she hung up the phone. And then right after that, I called my son. He was he was a little bit farther away, but it wasn't too crazy. He was having lunch, and I said, Dad is having another stroke. I need you to come home right now. Again, okay. And then I called my youngest, and my youngest is usually at school on Fridays, and she's usually very far away. But that time, her class was canceled, so she was at a nearby cafe studying with her friends. So I called her and I said, Dad, same thing. Dad is having another stroke. I need you to come home right now. So I am so proud of my kids that they didn't freak out. They weren't like, oh my goodness, what happened? Where are you? They didn't ask me any questions. They knew that the situation was dire. They just said, okay, and they all rushed home. And I knew that we were going to be okay. We were in excellent hands with these amazing paramedics. We were on our way to the hospital, and my kids were on their way. So we went, and I wasn't sure. We went straight to the ambulance bay. I wasn't sure, am I supposed to go wait in the waiting room? Where do I stand? The ER was crazy busy on that day, Friday afternoon, and I didn't want to get in anyone's way. But I wanted to be close by. And I said, where should I go and wait? And the paramedic said, no, you stay with us. You stay with us the entire time. We're going to go to CT. You're going to come with us. So they didn't leave me alone. They really took such good care of me, explaining what was the next steps, where we're going, and what we're going to do. So we rushed to CT, but of course I can't go into the CT room. I waited just outside, and within 10 minutes they were in and out, and they said, okay, CT is done. Let's go to the ER. And as we were going through the ER, I was so scared, and I was sticking really close to the paramedics. I was just following really close by. But one of the things that really struck me at the ER at Langley Memorial on that day was it was over flooded with so many sick people who were suffering. And as we were going by, like, oh my, I kid you not, the entire hallway, there were gurneys lined up with sick people lying on the beds in the hallway because there were not enough beds or rooms available to them. And that just made me so sick to my stomach. Um, and I started thinking, what is wrong with our healthcare system? What is wrong with this entire system that these people who are obviously in suffering don't have the dignity of having any privacy, a private space, or even a curtain to give them some privacy, but they were just out there in the open in the hallway. And it made me really, really angry to see that. And maybe in a future video I'll talk more about that, but moving forward. But thankfully for my husband, they got him into a room right away, and the paramedics, they were explaining what was going to happen next. And right away my son was the first to arrive. He called, I texted the kids in our group chat saying, zone this, room this, come here. This is where we're at. And within a couple of minutes, my son was the first to arrive. And then a couple of minutes after that, my oldest daughter, my youngest daughter, they came. Jennifer had called her boyfriend. He came to the house, picked up the girls, and brought them. So the three of them came in. And within just a couple of minutes after that, my son Justin, his girlfriend just came in. She Ubered and she came in. So within minutes, like, I was alone that entire time. And I know that my body was shaking because I was so scared. But then within a few minutes, that tiny hospital room was just filled with us. And then in that moment, I knew we're going to be okay. And by this time, after the CT, Joshua was a lot more alert. He didn't really say anything, but he was alert, and he was able to nod or do this, or blink his eyes, or try to squeeze hands, or raise arms up. So all of that was a really good thing, because as the minutes passed, he was becoming more and more responsive. But what really shook me was, as soon as Justin came in, my husband got really emotional and he cried a lot. And one thing about my husband, he rarely cries. And he was crying a lot, and the kids obviously were crying on their way to the hospital. Because here's the thing, when my husband had his stroke in 2023, my kids had no idea what a stroke was. And they had no idea how much Dad's life would change, and their lives would change as a result of this stroke. They had no idea what damage a stroke could do. So at that time, they were just in shock and just very confused. So I think they were a little bit scared, but they didn't really know what was happening. And it took a while for them to really understand that, okay, stroke and all of the damage that a stroke does to a person, it's lifelong, and it's debilitating. And so now they have such a solid understanding of what stroke was. So because they know what a stroke is, and they thought it was a second stroke, it hit them so much harder. So they were all crying when they came in. And when they saw Dad crying, like, we just all, how could you keep it together at that point? And then a few minutes after that, like, Joshua just wiped his tears, and then he just had a really big smile on his face. And he just started laughing and trying to communicate with the kids. And slowly his communication started coming back. So at first, when anyone asked him, what is your name? What is your birthday? Do you know where you are? Do you know what day it is? He wasn't able to answer. But by that time, when the doctor came in, I didn't think he could answer, so I was going to answer for him. But Joshua put up his hand, and very slowly he said his name, his date of birth, he said the date, and he knew the name of the hospital. He knew where we were. So that just brought such a huge sense of relief, knowing that, okay, he knows all these things and he's able to communicate that through words. This is amazing. Like, could this really be a stroke? Like, we weren't sure. So, we were so well taken care of. We had an amazing, amazing nurse who kept coming in and checking in on us and, explaining what he was doing and what he's finding. All of Joshua's vitals were very strong, so that was really good to hear. The radiologist was looking at the scans, and there was no sign of a stroke. Um, and there was no new activity compared to his CT scan after his stroke in 2023. So the ER doctor contacted the neurologist at VGH, sent over all the scans, and they believe that it was a seizure. Yeah, they thought it was a seizure, not a mini stroke or a TIA. And apparently, a CT scan can't even pick up a TIA, which is a transient ischemic, like those little mini strokes, because it's so small, it can't pick up on it. So they didn't think, and because he was coming back to his baseline as the minutes were passing, they believed that it was a stroke. They believed that it was a seizure. Now, I don't know much about seizures. I do know that they are common. I don't want to say common, but I do know. So, okay, here's the thing about stroke survivors. Once you have a stroke, your chances of having a second or third stroke are quite high. It could happen. Also, seizures, post stroke seizures, are quite common, and that can happen as well too. Now, I knew this information. It wasn't anything new, because in my support group for caregivers, a number of the members of our group were sharing about that several times. So, I listened to it, and at the time it didn't really register with me, but I listened, so I knew that it was a possibility. But for some reason, I don't know if this is just ignorance or whatever, I just thought it could never happen to us. That's what I thought. And the funny thing is, even a stroke, I thought, oh, it could never happen to us. So it's funny the way our minds work at times. But they thought that it was a seizure. And, but I said, well, he wasn't foaming at the mouth. He wasn't trying to bite his tongue. And that's all I know about seizures. And that's a grand mal seizure. So those are some of the physical signs that you see when it's a grand mal seizure. But there's many different types of seizures, and seizures can present themselves in very different ways. So later I found out that it's actually quite difficult to distinguish between a stroke and a seizure. You really have to get an MRI or an EEG to find out what it is. But they believed, looking at the CT scan and looking at how he was coming back to baseline so quickly, that they believed that it was a seizure. So they got him started on anti-seizure medication for the first time. He's never had that meds before, and he was getting better. He was in good spirits. He was joking around with the kids and, being silly. And the nurse wanted to make sure that he could walk. So the nurse came and took him for a little walk and saw that his balance was good. And then within about an hour later, we were sent home with a prescription for seizure medication. So I think in total, we were at the ER for about 3 hours. It didn't feel that long. Well, I know that 3 hours in an ER is actually very, very short. But I just, looking back, I just, I, I just want to say thank you to our incredible paramedics. Sarah and Chris, our amazing nurse, our amazing doctor. We were so well taken care of. I don't believe that this was an accident or a coincidence. I truly believe that, um, people were praying for us. Even at that time, I had texted, my family, I had texted just a couple of people. I didn't have much time to contact more people than I wanted to, but I knew that people were praying for us. So I could feel that presence and just that comfort and that peace um, immediately. And we were so well taken care of. And on a side note, several nurses came in to do some tests, and one nurse came in to take his blood. And she came in and she saw there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 7 of us, including Joshua. And she looked around and she said, "Whoa, um, is this your family?" She said that to my husband, and he nodded yes. And she smiled and said, "You are going to be okay. You are going to get better really fast. Look at all these people here." And she also said one of the saddest things is when there are people in the hospital suffering and they are all alone and they don't have that support. So I've said it once, I'll say it again. My husband is the luckiest stroke survivor because he has so much love and so much support. And I know that, but just hearing that from another healthcare professional, it just hits differently. So I was so happy and just so thankful to hear that. Um, yeah, and then after that, we went home. We all came back to the house. My oldest daughter and her boyfriend, they went grocery shopping to buy some chicken and they went home and then they prepared all this, chicken soup for us to eat. And the 7 of us just sat and just had a really heartwarming, such a comforting dinner and just trying to process everything. So since then, since Friday, like we've stayed home all weekend. So Saturday, we all stayed home. Sunday, yesterday, we all stayed home. And even today, it's Monday, but we were not in no shape to go to work. So we called in sick, and um, we're just trying to grapple with what happened. And from my husband's, like, if you look at my husband, like he's doing well. He On Saturday, Friday night, he slept so well. He was in deep sleep. He was snoring and he slept so well. He slept like a baby. The next morning he woke up and he finished the laundry because he was doing laundry on Friday right before he had his his emergency, and he remembered, "Oh, I didn't finish the laundry." So he went down and finished up the laundry, put away all of our clothes and took care of all of that. And he made coffee for me. He brought it up to me in bed because I did not sleep a wink on Friday night. I was up till 7 a.m. in the morning. And it's been, I don't know, 30 years since I pulled an all-nighter like that back when I was a student. And so I fell asleep from 7 o'clock to about 9:30 in the morning. So I slept a couple of hours early in the morning, but it was, this one hit me very differently. Like I just had this panic and this fear, and I was just afraid to fall asleep. And I think definitely the first, the initial stroke in September 2023, it was shocking and it was traumatic and it was so many other things. But this one, it hit different. And I'm so thankful it wasn't a second stroke. And but I wish it wasn't anything. Like, am I happier? Am I more thankful that it was a seizure compared to a stroke? The thing that when I did think it was a stroke, I thought it was a stroke for about an hour and a half before the doctor said and came and said, "I don't think it's a stroke." So for about an hour and a half, I was really mad. I was really angry because I felt like for the past year and a half, I've been doing everything I could do to prevent a second stroke. Just keeping on top of his medications, keeping on top of his medical appointments and doctor's visits and blood tests and scans. And I'm doing everything that I can and just, maintaining a healthy diet, a healthy lifestyle, and physical exercise. So we worked so hard this past year to get to where we were. And this felt like just a slap in the face. Like all of our efforts were just a waste of time. All of our progress was useless because now we're back to where we started or even further back than we were before. So all of these thoughts were going in my mind, and I was just really, really angry. When I found out that it was a seizure, I think I was able to let go of some of that anger, because a seizure, unless you're on medication, it really can't be prevented. You really can't, you don't know when it's going to happen. And we don't know what triggered it. So on the medical side, we're waiting for an MRI and an EEG to understand better, what's going on in the brain, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out what may have caused it or what may have triggered it. That way we'll know what we need to avoid. So we're waiting for that. And what's really interesting on a side note is that they don't offer that in the ER. Like, I didn't really understand that. And I was like, so you don't have an MRI machine in this hospital? I don't know. So we're on the wait list. I'm waiting for a phone call to make an appointment. And I told them, we don't have to come to this hospital. We will go to any hospital. Just get me an appointment. We will be there. If there's any cancellations, put us anywhere, anytime, we will go, because I really need to get these tests done for him so that we can hopefully get some answers and figure out the next steps. So, where are we now? My husband is fine. The medication is some of the side effects for his anti-seizure medication causes some drowsiness and dizziness. So he doesn't like it because his head feels very fuzzy and he doesn't have any energy. So he doesn't like it, but until we figure out what the next steps are, he's going to have to take it. I do have a doctor's appointment later this afternoon, so I will bring that up. But for me and the kids, this was very, very traumatic. And it was harder. This one was harder than the first time. And it's ironic because, the more you do something and the more you're used to something, it should get easier, but it doesn't. In fact, it's harder because it feels like a setback, feels like a punch in the face. It feels like you are completely blindsided, and it kind of makes you feel like everything that you've been working so hard for was just all for nothing. And I know that's not true, but that's just how I felt. And it's been a very traumatic weekend for our kids. So right now we're just staying together, trying to regroup and just be together as a family. We've had a lot of discussions. We've had a lot of alone time. We've had a lot of time just to, just get mad and, just let our emotions out, like a lot of tears. And I'm just so thankful that we have this space and this time to get everything out. So that's where we are right now. I will try to update more as I can, and if I find out anything more, I will definitely update, because seizures are a part of, unfortunately, they are a part of life after stroke. Not for everyone, but it can be. So I know that I need to do a lot more research about seizures. I need to do my due diligence and understand seizures, and have a better understanding of that. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much. And just, if you could just pray for our family. We're trying to process this new trauma when we still haven't healed from the initial trauma. So we're dealing with two separate traumas, and it just seems like a lot for us to bear, especially for my kids, and just trying to understand why this happened and why we're blindsided with another medical emergency again. So we covet your prayers and we thank you so much for all of your love and your support. Thank you.